welcome, and thank you for tuning in. You're listening to the Beyond 50 radio program. I'm Daniel Davis. For those of you in midlife seeking to find employment or perhaps making a career change, you might find it challenging in today's society. First of all, underneath, you're probably thinking, well, maybe I'm just a little bit too mature that perhaps I'm going to get beat out by somebody younger with a college degree who's willing to take less money than perhaps I'm willing to take. Well, joining us here on the program today is the Outreach Director for the City Career Fair, which produces 30 annual Diversity Employment Day career fairs yearly nationwide. We're going to learn from our expert today what most employers include recruiting for mature workers as part of their priority when hiring for diversity and inclusion. Things such as women and people with disabilities, multicultural, even the LGBTQ and veterans communities are also included in this particular talk today that we're going to be finding out about, as well as current trends by many employers who recruit for mature workers as part of their priority when hiring for diversity and inclusion. I'd like to welcome to the Beyond 50 radio program today our guest and Director of Diversity Outreach, Mr. Neil Morrison. Neil, thank you for joining us here on the program today.
Hey, Daniel, thank you so much for having me.
You bet. Now, getting hired after the age of 50 seems to be challenging for a lot of people, at least in the back of their minds anyway. What are your thoughts on this? What is the reality going on here?
Well, here's the good news. It's suddenly a hot job market for workers over 50, and I'll tell you why. It's a tight job market. Full employment is really at 5%. That's what the economists say. Well, when we're there, everybody's pretty much got a job and is pretty happy. But right now, unemployment in the U.S. is down to 4.1%. Okay, and for folks that are over 50, the unemployment rate is less than that. It's like about 3.1%. And with a tight job market, employers become really, really desperate because they'll find that they have to pay higher wages to attract talent, and so they're scrambling. And so when they can find mature workers or older workers that are willing to step in, that have the experience, they can do the job, they're just really, really excited. And so that's what we're seeing right now after this protracted recession we just came through.
So you're saying that jobs are more available now in a situation that seems that demand has actually gotten to a point where supply actually gives people more negotiating power. Is that correct?
That sounds right on target, Daniel.
Well, that's very encouraging for people to know about. So let's talk about some tips that people, for instance, in midlife or in these categories that I discussed earlier, might want to consider to get hired.
Well, the first thing is to make sure you do an assessment of what your skills are, what you actually you want to do. You can do just about anything, given if you have the physical ability and you have some of the training and background. But you might decide, hey, in this part of my life, I want to do something that I really want to do. So take that assessment. If you need to get some more classes under your belt to help you to get towards that goal of the perfect or close to perfect job, then do that. You need to also get yourself ready in the sense of presenting yourself. You need to have your resume updated. You need to go out there and start making some connections with organizations and groups that are going to give you what's going on in that particular field that you're interested. And also, you're going to have to begin to do some self-searching to see if these things that you've been thinking about, that you may be overqualified for positions, that you only want a certain amount of money for a position, you're going to have to look at those closely and be prepared to ratchet those things down, because at this point you want to get your foot in the door. And so you want to be able to reach out to your old contacts maybe, Ask them, hey, what's going on out there? Can you give me a referral? Can you tell me what the market is like? Can you tell me how I should prepare? You also have those established organizations like the workforce centers, employment offices, even ARP. They have great resources to help you to prepare yourself to getting yourself ready for doing interviews, for where to find those kind of positions that match your skills, so on and so forth. So those are a couple of the items that you really need to get going. Get your head right, do an inventory, get your resume going, make contacts, and begin to put action into it. Don't let stinking thinking, negative thoughts, slow you down or keep you from taking that first step, which sometimes is the most difficult step.
And that's very wise that you said that, because a lot of times it is a person's thinking that's preventing them from being successful in this, not necessarily the reality of what's happening out there. I mean, you may, trip over here and there, maybe get a few no's, but the fact is just be persistent and consistent with what you're doing, correct?
Absolutely. And don't be afraid to reach out to folks. I know a lot of people have been out of the workforce, and they kind of feel, oh, gosh, I don't want to let people know that I'm looking to get back in. Folks are looking at their resources and saying, hey, do I have enough money to stay in the retirement mode? Take the attitude, yeah, you may be retired, but you're not tired. But when you ask for assistance or direction, guess what? Most folks have compassion, they've been there, and they're going to try to give you a little bit of help and give you some direction and give you support, more so than you would ever imagine.
Very encouraging for folks to know. Now, let's talk about some of the jobs and careers that people in midlife might want to consider to be some of the best directions to find themselves looking.
Well, Daniel, a lot of it starts from where you are, what your skill level are. But some of the most popular positions are those positions that don't require a lot of physicality. For example, management positions, or if you happen to be an engineer or something like that. The management positions are really good in the sense that the maturity that older or mature workers possess helps in guiding the younger workforce out there. That's always a plus. And a lot of folks get their foot in the door in unique ways. They volunteer for organizations, or they believe it or not, they even take internships or apprenticeships. And it may be even a seasonal type position where you're in retail. For example, Williams-Sonoma and J.C. Penney's, they have special programs that they're experimenting with, bringing in mature workers and older workers. And many of those startup or volunteer type of positions lead right into a full-time position. And some of those positions are like medical assistant. You don't need any formal training. You can get a certification, that makes you more appealing. And it doesn't need a high, extensive educational degree to get into a medical assistant. Patient advocate, basically where you're steering patients and their families through the medical system, and you handle the paperwork. That again doesn't require a lot of training. And any training that you get for a position like that, it's going to be on the job, unique to that particular employer. Personal care aid, home health aid. These, again, don't need any special training. You learn on the job. And these are in the healthcare field. And the U.S. Bureau of Statistics, they're projecting that it's going to be the first and second fast-growing careers in up to 2025. So you want to get involved with something that's going to give you some longevity, but then again, you're going to want to have some freedom too. And bookkeeper, secretary, again, they're needed in all industries. The government forecasts that there's going to be a 41% increase in growth for medical secretaries by 2025. Tax preparers, if you're good with numbers, again, you get easy training through your continuing education program from your local community college. And it's really great for part-timers. You may say, hey, I don't want to jump back into a 9-to-5. This might be something you think about, something that's part-time, so you kind of tip your toe in the tub a little bit. Contract workers, if you have unique skills, something that you were doing, maybe you were with Boeing, or maybe you were, working with the railroads or something like that, you can parcel out your skills. Many times, employers now have boomerang programs where a person's thinking about retiring, but they're not ready to really take off just yet. Many of the employers will say, hey, when you retire, why don't you just come on back as a part-timer or contract worker? Explore that. You may go back. You may be retired now. Go back. Your employer may be missing you and may say, hey, become a boomeranger. Come back on around. College instructor, vocational instructor, those are really good positions that have, again, an stress, like 44% growth by 2025. So those are a few of the top ones, and don't forget, working from home. Right now you have a lot of companies that are online that instead of having a huge call center, they're using technology to employ folks to work from home, to be customer service. A lot of people don't want customer service that originates in India or originates in the Philippines. They want something where, the idiosyncrasies of their questions and the subtleties of their questions are readily understood. So they want English-speaking customer service reps. So the big credit card holder companies or the big customer service companies, maybe even Amazon, try Apple, all of those now are booming. And that's a great way to tie in and to also work from home.
Very encouraging to hear what you're telling us here, especially when it comes to the fact that maybe people are out there saying, hey, come back. I could really use the talent and certainly, the maturity you were talking about as far as that goes to make things work. Now, as people may feel there's the possibility of discrimination, I always say the possibility, what can a person consider the proper steps to do if they believe that's something that's happening?
Well, one of the first things to do is document. You need to document the experience that you had, and then you can always contact the company. Let the company or the potential employer know that, hey, I feel that maybe I wasn't evaluated completely or fairly. Because the reality is a lot of folks have what's known as unconscious bias. They're not at the front of their mind thinking, I have this bias against, mature workers or older workers. It's something that unconsciously they do. And that's not an excuse, and you can't let it be an excuse. You have to address that up front. So if that does happen, you want to speak with someone in the company or someone that you're looking to get a job from that has responsible for compliance, hiring compliance. Every sizable company has what's known as the EEOC compliance manager. And that person's responsibility is to help keep the company on a straight, even, fair keel in all areas of employment. So you'll want to speak with them and let them know what your thoughts were and why you feel that way. If if that isn't successful, then your next alternative is to really go to the EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity. They have different districts throughout the U.S., and ask them questions, let them know what your experience is, and they can certainly give you some advice. And in some cases, they may investigate further to see exactly what are the details and were you discriminated based upon age.
Okay. So, it sounds pretty encouraging that there are actions people could take as far as that goes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, let's talk about some ways that people can prepare and the first actions a person should take to prepare themselves when it comes to finding a new job.
Well, the first item, as I had said earlier, is number one, assess your skills, and then where you have those weaknesses, you need to shore those up. Or if you want to start off in a new area, then you need to make sure that you're really clear that you have a path to qualifying with the skills that the employers that you want to apply to are actually looking for. The next item is to make sure your networking skills are dialed in, and what that means is that if you have professional organizations that you belong to in the past or currently belong to, pursue those, because those are warm contacts. Those folks there, you need to get out, communicate with, let them know that, hey, you're looking for a new challenge, you're ready to open up a new door. You'll be surprised at what you're going to find. Also, utilize those community services, meaning the work source centers, the American Find Jobs, the Employment Office, ARP. All of those organizations have step-by-step skill-building programs that can take you from deciding what you want to do, to getting your resume together, to giving you skill sets that bring you up to date when it comes to interviewing, because the interviewing process is really, really important. I don't know how many of you have put your resume up on any of the job boards or career boards out there, the major ones. We all know the names. We've heard them on the advertisements. My question is, how many of you actually received a job as a result of that? Well, I can tell you what we see at our career fairs. Very few people receive a job as a result of that. And one of the things that we find that's very, very important is to have face-to-face interaction with your potential employer. To do drive-by dropping off resumes or mailing in or posting, that's not going to get you very far. What you're going to want to do is get in those situations where you can get in front of a recruiter, where you can get in front of an employee resource group. They have many groups in companies that specialize for mature workers, or if you're part of a multicultural community, or if you're part of a gender community, women, LGBTQ, so on and so forth. If you can make a warm contact, that's going to be one of the best ways, because you're going to get real-time information from people who are right there that know exactly what the needs of the company are. And so if you're getting together with recruiters like that at a career fair, that is probably going to be the best, because it's face-to-face interaction, it's real-time, you're getting dialed in on what they need, you're able to let them know what you're able to do, and you're able to fill in the gaps that maybe they, as a recruiter or an employer, see that you didn't see on your resume, or maybe you didn't have a chance to even think about it. So when you get your chance to develop the warm contacts, I would say that is the most important thing that you need to do. The next thing is to get your attitude right. Get rid of the stinking thinking, okay? Leave that outside. When you go to meet with an employer, or you go to a career fair or a job fair, or you're going to network at a group or association, forget all the stories that you had about the recession, about anything negative, because stinking thinking is contagious, and people don't want to be around it. So make sure you get your mind in the right space where you're positive, where you're open, where people are going to want to interact with you. That is very, very important.
Now let's talk about some companies that really go above and beyond when it comes to recruiting and supporting workers in midlife.
As I mentioned earlier, Williams-Sonoma and JCPenney's actually have programs, pilot programs that they work for mature workers, bringing them in, giving them training in some cases, allowing them to even take courses and to even have health enhancement like exercising and things like that. But just to run down some of them that have been recognized, and some of these companies have actually signed on to agreements with groups like ARP that they will be active, reaching out to not only mature workers but to all groups that seem to be underrepresented. And some of those companies are like KPMG, General Mills, Pfizer, Boise Cascade, Kimberly-Clark, United Way, Atlantic Health, Omni Systems, H&M, which is a retailer, TJX, which is another one. And those are just a few. And I'd like to add on to that, don't forget staffing firms like Adecco and Apple, because they have mature worker programs, and they have access to employers coming all the time. And guess what? When you go out on assignment, that's one of the best times to showcase your abilities and your skills, because many of the skills that are what employers are looking for are the exact skills that mature workers have in abundance. And so when you're going out there on maybe that temp job, whatever it might be, whether it might be a managerial, whether it might be a greeter, whether it might be doing something with the paperwork or whatever, do your best and begin to network with those people at that job. Begin to understand and become a detective, especially if it's something that you would like to do as a new career. So those are some of the major companies that have also signed on to a pledge that they will be looking for mature workers and underrepresented workers.
Well, very encouraging what you're sharing with us today. It sounds to me like, as most people tend to think, because I remember as we were starting our show and in the years that followed, that a lot of people, you would see it in news articles that you would hear about it in the news, and I'm thinking, but I don't think the world out there in reality is what these people are claiming, to a point that it made me kind of feel depressed about people being in midlife not getting a fair shake. And I'm wondering why these people are reporting this kind of stuff when the reality was much kinder than the news actually was. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think we're in new times now. It's an economic necessity that employers now consider in the mix mature or older workers. And for those reasons, because they can't really readily find new workers that have the core values that mature workers, such as experience, maturity, work ethic, loyalty, contacts, all of those kind of things. Today it's hard to find workers, young workers, particularly that are good listeners, that have pride in a job well done. A lot of that is I hate to say it, pretty rare. And speaking of longevity, your average younger worker, career worker now, stays in place maybe a year and a half to 2 years, and they're ready to move on. They're ready to try and make more money. They're ready to try and use their last position as a springboard to the next one. Employers now have been exhausted by that. They are also exhausted by what many of them have indicated as an excessive amount of entitlement demonstrated by some younger workers. And so that has made the evaluation of older and mature workers more of a reality, more of a positive thing than it has been in the past. And that's one of the reasons why right now mature and older workers have a lower unemployment rate than basically any other sector in the workforce. And employers realize that, hey, there are all these skills out here that older workers who are eager to come in, who will probably stick around for a while, won't be looking to jump off, and many of them already have health insurance. Those are big pluses, because as the job market gets tighter, meaning with less unemployment, those employers realize in order to attract those premium skilled employees, they actually have to pay more. And that's where the big kink comes in. And that's when they start looking at other alternatives like mature and older employers. So that's what makes this, as I started off by saying, a hot job market for workers over 50.
You know, another thing, too, and it just had occurred to me as you were describing some of the arenas and companies people would want to consider pursuing is the gaming industry. You know, I was in Las Vegas not too long ago, and I know in Arizona there's a lot of casinos, and what I did notice on average is the staff in general seem to be, visually anyway, older. You know, I mean, running the tables, whether it was serving cocktails, whatever the case is, it seemed like there were more of those than there was anyone else. So, you know, that's a thought. What are your thoughts on that one?
Well, you know, Daniel, that's what you saw on the front end. On the other side that you didn't see, there are more mature workers. Because remember what I shared with you? One of the best spots that companies like to bring in mature workers is in the management area, because they have the experience, they have the skills, they have the contacts, and that's where a lot of folks also come in. But hospitality and entertainment, those and travel, those are really, really good hot areas for mature workers, because, again, those are areas that you don't need to have a lot of skill or training in. A lot of that is on-the-job type of thing. And the good part is many of those can be part-time or seasonal. So if you just don't want to get back into that old 9 to 5, guess what? You can find a perfect alternative to that.
Well, very good. I want to thank you so much for joining us here on the program. And since you do this career fair nationwide, where is a website people can go to so they can find out when and where one of these might be happening in their area?
citycareerfair.com, citycareerfair.com. And once you get there, there's a calendar there. You just click on the city that's nearest you, and our annual Diversity Employment Day, which is just full of employers that are looking to get a diverse workforce, which includes mature workers and older workers, they're there. They're already dialed in. They're already clued in on why you are a valued asset for their company.
Well, that's very encouraging, very exciting, and I'm sure that our listeners out there are thinking, wow, that's just exciting. Neil, I want to thank you so much for being on the program. Enough. Oh, well, go ahead.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I was just going to say, if this charges up any person, that is such a blessing, because you got to take action now. Don't put it off till tomorrow. Now is the time. And Daniel, thank you so much for allowing me to share this information on your program Beyond 50.
Yeah, and most importantly, I think one of the key tips that you gave here that I want to reiterate for our audience as well is this. You know, if you're going to surround yourself with people that don't think it's possible, then most likely you're going to prove that they're right. What you want to do is surround yourself with people that know that it's not only possible but very doable, and you're going to find out they'll be right too. So the choice is, which choice do you want to make?
Absolutely. You hit it on the nail.
Well, Neil, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to have you on the program today.
Oh, thank you too, Daniel. And everybody, hey, keep moving forward now.
Absolutely. One foot in front of the other, just like in the movie Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, right? Thanks again, Neil. We want to thank you, the listeners out there, for joining us. You can find out more by visiting us at beyond50radio.com. That is the number 50. We do encourage you to sign up for a weekly e-newsletter. Keep up to date with what's going on in the world of Beyond 50 as well as our upcoming shows. I'm Daniel Davis. Thank you for joining us. This is the Beyond 50 radio program. And remember, live your day past halfway.